Good afternoon. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx Webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch on YouTube. My name is Bruce Mullock, and the panel this afternoon is Aaron Cheng, Peter Reed, and Carl Nipfel. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting via computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone. They have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry. When an item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. And we ask that you also mute your devices until you are called upon to speak. Those participating by video will be temporarily upgraded to panelist status when their item is being heard. As panelist, your camera will be enabled. You will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled, and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use share screen or other panelist controls during a video appearance. The host will remove you from the panelist role should you fail to respect this condition. Land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee must submit a written request for a decision by email. Please ensure that you include your name and address and email address, because the Committee of Adjustment and TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision to the Toronto local appeal body, or in some limited circumstances, to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed the rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and specified persons and public bodies defined under the Planning Act are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant may proceed with the presentation if so requested by the committee. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair should they wish to speak to the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent or applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment to you when you are approaching the 5-minute mark. When addressing the committee, please state clearly your name and address, and remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The applicant or agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide instead to defer the application, if substantially revised, in order to ensure that the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then individuals in support of or opposed to will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they have finished. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut, but only those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion on that item. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Are there any declarations of interest by panel or staff for the items in this afternoon's time slot? Seeing none, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any deferral requests?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and panel members. Yes, we have received one application requesting deferral this afternoon, which is item number 27, and that's 48 Admiral Road.
Thank you. Number 2748 Admiral. And are there any files to be closed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, there are no files to be closed.
Thank you. So we move now to the agenda, and we are beginning on item number 21. (571) Euclid Avenue. On this application before the panel are the following: copy of survey, site plan, floor plans, elevations, submitted application time. There's a revised set of plans received April 14. And there is a staff report from Community Planning, City of Toronto, received 20th of April.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it has come to our attention from community planning staff this morning that they have revised their condition in their planning report simply to reflect the new date with the new plans, to reflect the April 14th date, and to tie the proposal to the site plan and elevation drawings. And staff have that on the screen right now.
Okay, and that's for number 21.
Correct.
Thank you. So please note that, panel members. And we shall ask the agent for this application to join us now by stating your name.
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name's Eddie Perez. I'm here on behalf of the owners and the designer for this project. As
Good
you can see, we sent in, yeah,
Afternoon to you.
good afternoon.
Okay. Panel members, questions for this agent? Any request for a presentation? No. Question, Mr. Reed, please, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. To the applicant, I'm just wondering about the new balcony in the third story, if it would warrant privacy screening on the north and south side. I'm just not sure how the house relates to its neighbors at that point.
Well, both neighbors to the other side, they're the same as our house. The one to the south, the addition pretty well lines up with ours. And we're adding the balcony. If privacy screening is needed, then we can provide that.
Okay, thanks.
Further questions? Nope, not seeing any. Let's take the application then into committee. For a motion, Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think what's being proposed is very reasonable. It's a moderate addition to the second floor, and then the balcony in the third floor. But I do think some screening would be appropriate. So I move approval of the application subject to the planning condition that's put forward, and subject to screening on the third floor balcony, north and south sides.
Okay. So do we have that right, Madam Deputy Secretary Chair, with respect to the planning condition?
Through the chair, you can state the revised planning condition.
Okay. Let's put it, we'll use that wording. Okay, excellent. Is there a second to that motion? Yes, Mr. Nipfel. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please. Show of hands. Thank you. Motion's carried. And the application is approved. Number 22 is 509 Christie. We have before us submitted plans. We have a staff report from Urban Forestry, and we have correspondence in concern from 6 Braymore Gardens. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Hello, my name is Stephen LeBlanc. I'm the agent for the applicant.
Hello, good afternoon. Okay, and do we have someone standing by, moderator?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the registered speaker is on standby.
Very good, okay. Okay, Mr. LeBlanc, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel.
I'd like to start by pointing out that an error in the tree declaration has been corrected. There is a proposed pier footing inside a tree protection zone, but there are established procedures for constructing without injuring a tree. And we intend to follow those procedures with the help of a professional arborist and with the clearance from Urban Forestry. We're proposing to build a third floor deck and a second floor deck, both of them at the east side of the existing residence. The house will be converted into a single family residence. And the third floor deck is allowable under the zoning bylaw, but the second floor deck needs variances for rear yard setback, for size, and we also will need a variance because it's the second deck at the east face. Now, we've had conversations with the neighbor at Braymore, and one of his concerns was the privacy from the second floor deck. And the applicant is in agreement that the provision of privacy screens 1.8 meters high at both the north and south sides is perfectly acceptable, and he's willing to do that. And we're also prepared to construct the pier footing under the supervision of a registered arborist in order to protect the tree and allay the concerns of the neighbor who commented, the neighbor from 6 Braymore. Thanks, that's everything I have to say.
Thank you very much. Okay. Let's go then to the registered speaker standing by.
Daniel, you've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
I don't know how to turn on my video here. I'm a Zoom user, not a WebEx user. Do I just, oh, I see here, hang on.
There should be a button that says start video.
I don't see it on my screen here. Start video, got it. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee, as well as the applicant's agent. Thank you for, first of all, clarifying the privacy screen, which was not in my letter of concern and or objection. So thank you for doing that. That's important to us as well. The reason the tree issue has come up and they've revised their application is that we have, if you looked at, I think it's document 6 in the list of documents that I saw, our letter of concern of April 14th, we have a gigantic oak tree about 150 years old, the canopy of which, no, that's not the document, the canopy of which covers not only our entire backyard, but also our 2 neighbors to the east and west of us, and also to that neighbor, which is 509 Christie Street, to the north of us. And the tree is, I think we're lot 24 on that, what's on the screen. That's not what I provided. I provided a drawing. If you can, no, not that one. There's a drawing where I, in my letter of concern, thank you, it should be document number 1. That's the one. If you can make it a little bigger, I did a hand-drawn document, and the tree, which is an estimate of size, it says the oak tree. I did my best in the math, and clearly the pier, which is at the south east corner of the proposed second floor balcony, will go into and well into the tree protection zone. My concerns, which I appreciate that the agent did amend their application this morning at, and I only got it when I came online to see that it had been amended to recognize that it has to be covered. I'm concerned because our arborist is concerned that the coverage in the backyard is also quite significant, and water and other issues. That pier may be part of the problem, but I don't know whether or not it's going to affect the tree otherwise. So I don't know what's to do next now that they've amended their application and will comply. That's very helpful. I spoke to Peter, who's one of the, I guess he's one of the sons of the deceased who owned the house, and he said he wanted to protect the tree as well. So I want to know what my involvement can be with my arborist to make sure that we're comfortable that all of this will actually comply with the tree protection expectations of the city. We've been maintaining the tree every single year with proper maintenance with a certified arborist who is also contracted to the City of Toronto for other work, Masters and Cohen, and they're concerned as well with respect to the success of this tree. So I just want to be somehow involved in the ongoing decisions as the work is done. I have a very good working relationship with the owner. I expect cooperation, but I want to make sure that that's noted in some form of decision made to allow this today. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Questions for the speaker applicant? Okay. Not hearing any, so let's go back to the applicant to see what his thoughts are in respect to your interest or your concern. Applicant?
The homeowner, the applicant is interested in preserving the tree as well. It's a magnificent tree. And there are well-established procedures for building pier foundations within tree protection zones that simultaneously protect the tree. And that work is done under the supervision of an arborist. So what I propose is that the committee apply a condition to the decision that the applicant will engage a professional arborist and will share the arborist report with the neighbor at 6 Braymore prior to proceeding with construction, so that the affected neighbor can contact his own arborist and have the tree protection plan and the arborist report reviewed before any work begins. We are quite confident at our end that the pier footing can be constructed in a way that does not injure the tree.
Okay, are there other questions for the, or are there any questions for the agent panel? Not hearing any, okay. Okay then. In that case, we are ready to, Mr. Knipfel, please, go ahead.
I had a very quick question, sorry. The discussion previously with Mr. Reed was to provide, or I've forgotten who raised it, to provide screening on the north and south edges of the second floor balcony, and that was in, I think, in response to one of the neighbors. There's also a balcony on the third floor, and I'm wondering if that also needs screening. It's a smaller balcony, it's further in from the edge of the building, but it's quite high, it's 3 stories up, and I would welcome the agent's comment on whether we should screen that balcony as well.
We're willing to provide privacy screens at the north and south sides of that 3rd floor balcony. However, the overview from that tiny balcony so far back from the edge of the 2nd floor roof is going to be very minimal. Nevertheless, we're willing to provide a 1.8 meter high screen at both the north and the south side.
Have you discussed it with the adjacent? I don't want you to provide it if it's not needed. Have you discussed that issue with the neighbors?
The neighbors didn't raise any concerns. I'm sitting next to the homeowner, Peter Weninger, here, and the neighbor to the north didn't raise any particular concerns about that deck.
Okay, thank you very much.
I want to add one final thing. This deck is a fire exit deck. It's not really an amenity deck.
Yeah.
The building code requires a balcony at the 3rd story of a 3-story house.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay then, at this stage, we can take the application into committee for some discussion and moving toward a motion. Mr. Knipfel, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if the Deputy Secretary Treasurer might offer an opinion. The agreement that the 2 owners have come to about engaging an arborist in the manner in which the deck is going to be constructed all sounds very encouraging. Because it's the preservation of a tree, I'm wondering, should we be including in here a reference to forestry being involved or approving or in some way being part of that conversation? I'd welcome some advice on that.
Through the chair, as for the agreement between the neighbors, that is a civil matter regarding the arborist report. It's not a condition that the committee can impose. Who would it be to the satisfaction of? Urban Forestry has not provided any conditions in this regard, and any application to remove or injure a tree would have to go through Urban Forestry as a separate process. So in terms of the committee, we cannot impose a condition regarding a civil matter between an agreement between neighbors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comment people want to make? Is anyone ready to move forward with a motion? Mr. Reed, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a very reasonable application, and I'm heartened to see that there is good relationships between the applicant and the neighbors, and I think they everyone has the best interest of the tree at heart, I think. So I'm happy to move approval of the application, subject to screening on the north and south side of the second floor deck. I think that the third floor one is reset enough that there shouldn't be an issue with that. And perhaps we could, not as a condition, but just as a comment, we could add a comment at the end noting the fact that the neighbor and the applicant agree or have stated that they agree to work together to site the footing and observe the footing in relation to the health of the tree. Something to that effect, if that makes sense.
Well, I think we've sort of had
Peter, if
guidance
you
on
could
that
even-
from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer, who was not inclined for us to go there because of our inability to enforce anything.
No, I agree, and I'm not suggesting that it be a condition, but just more to note that this was raised in the discussion, and just as a note. And I know that doesn't add anything apart from a feeling in a way, but I think it's important to note in some fashion.
Peter, I agree with you, but I wonder if the reference might be broader to just say that they've agreed to work together on preserving the oak tree, because they also mentioned coverage and water, and basically I'm like you, very encouraged that they're working together, and it is a note, it's not a condition. So I'd support what you're suggesting.
There is a little paragraph in that report from forestry, and they did mention that they still need to get a permit from them in order to get it approved, even if they approve the application. So I think legally speaking is pretty bulletproof, but it's good to have a recommendation from us.
So, Mr. Cheng, you would be disinclined to include any reference to the tree maintenance?
No, I'm happy to include that as a reference, but I don't know if that should be a condition. That might be duplicating to what the forestry is recommending.
Yeah. Okay.
Through the
I'm just-
chair, at most in the minutes, we could add a note for the record
Okay.
in this
I think
regard.
that would satisfy them. A note for the record.
Staff, that's all I'm recommending. That'd be great. Thanks.
Very good. Okay. Mr. Nipfel.
I'm supporting the application.
Okay. So we have the motion is made and seconded by Mr. Nipfel. It is therefore moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. And that vote carries the motion. Application's approved. Thank you. Number 23 is 530 Oakwood Avenue. And on the application we have before us submitted materials. There are presentation materials from the agent. There are, in support, 10 form letters. Addresses on Glenholm, Eleanor Avenue, Oakwood, Vaughan Road. And there's one correspondence item in opposition from number 12, Eleanor Avenue, from Rick Fleischman. So we'll ask the agent to join us, please.
Hey, Mr. Chair, Craig Race, 282 Richmond Street East, agent on the file.
Good afternoon. Okay. Okay, panel, on this application, any request for a presentation? Any questions to put to Mr. Race? I am not hearing any, so we can move forward into committee toward a motion.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cheng, go ahead.
I just want to make a comment that this is a pretty good idea, as long as it is, it meets all the building code requirement, which I think it will, and there's no changes of landscape, no parking deficiencies. I think it's pretty straightforward, and I'm happy to support.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded, Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded to Approve. Those in favor, please. Show of hands. That vote carries the motion unanimously.
Mr. Chairman,
Application
could
is
I ask a
approved.
question?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, in the opposition letter, there is actually the opposition is more to the the maintenance status of the existing building and how it's not being properly maintained. We have complaints like this on a fairly regular basis. Is there somebody to whom we can refer the person that's objecting, or can we refer the issue to another department? Because I don't think we should be ignoring the fact that people are abusing their properties and not maintaining them. I don't know. Is it a property standards issue? Is there some action that we can take to respond to? I guess it's Mr. Leachman who made comments about the maintenance of the property.
Through the chair, any complaints in this regard of property issues or maintenance, again, would have to go through 311. That's the city's channel to handle and track these complaints, and then send out an appropriate inspection officer if required, or one could also contact the buildings department. But generally, all these types of complaints and matters are handled through calling 311.
Is that advice that you can refer to Mr. You've got Mr. Fleischman's email on file, because he filed a correspondence in opposition. Can you forward that advice to him?
Through the chair, sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
Very good. Number 24. 150 Sterling. Panel has before it submitted materials, cover letter from the agent, planning justification report, parking supply study, March, Committee of Adjustment decisions from 2020 and 2022, presentation materials from the agent April 19. We have a email correspondence from Transportation and a staff report from Community Planning. And there is opposition in the form of correspondence from from Nicholas Badminton and Sarah McCarthy on behalf of Steve Hunt and Sarah Owen, Kevin Thoner, Jonathan Visallo, of 162738 and 45 Perth Ave.
Through the chair, I would also just like to flag for the members this morning regarding the planning report and condition. Perhaps staff can bring the planning report on the screen. Just wanted to flag that the condition number 1 from the community planning report is actually unnecessary and inappropriate to impose a condition related to a site plan application. We have to keep the conditions imposed to the minor variance application and not a site plan application. Thank you.
So number 1 is eliminated, number 2 stands.
This is through the chair, this would be the concern and recommendation of staff, and it's up to the members how you would like to proceed. However, staff concern, just flagging for the members that condition number 1 is inappropriate.
Thank you. Okay. Okay then. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Ryan, you've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee.
Good afternoon to you.
My name is Ryan Doherty. My address is 3 Church Street, and I am the agent to this application.
Very good. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Could we please pull up the presentation package? Yes, that's great. Thank you. Okay, I will give a brief presentation here. So if we could go to the next page. The site highlighted here is situated at the corner of Sterling Road. It's currently used as a surface parking lot adjacent to the Museum of Contemporary Art building. The site comprises Block 3B of the Sterling Road area. The block structure you see here was originally established following a multi-year rezoning and plan of subdivision process, as well as an OPA process, which concluded with 2 decisions issued by the Ontario Municipal Board, allowing for the collective redevelopment of these lands with a mix of uses. Next slide, please. So the site is situated between Dundas Street West and Bloor Street West. It's surrounded by several existing and planned transit options, including the 505 and 506 streetcar lines to the south, as well as the Line 2 subway to the north. To the northeast is the planned Bloor-Lansdowne GO station. Next slide, please. So this is a land use map from the City of Toronto official plan. As shown here, the site is designated mixed use areas. Next slide, please. This is map 4 of the applicable bylaw 943/2015, which was established through the previous rezoning process. And this map establishes the permitted built form for each block within the Sterling Road area. And so block 3B is shown as having as of right permissions to allow for an 8-story, 30-meter building across the site with a 6-story element on all sides. Next slide, please. This is a view of the proposal facing southwest at the bend of Sterling Road. The proposal is a 14-story building, approximately 51 meters, including the mechanical penthouse, and is configured with a 4 to 5-story podium to the east at the bend of Sterling, stepping up to 14 stories on the west side of the site. The proposal includes retail space and a childcare facility at grade and on level 2, in addition to residential space. Next slide, please. This is just a plan view of the proposal. By shifting most of the massing on the west side of the site, the intent is to open up the Sterling Road corner and provide a gentler massing in this location that will also provide for better views of the adjacent Mocha building to the south. Next slide, please. So to facilitate this proposal, we require a total of 8 variances, ranging from gross floor area, front yard setback, height, number of parking spaces, and parking space dimensions. Next slide, please. So following the previous approvals process, it was determined through discussions with staff that a public park use would be delivered on the adjacent Block 2 lands, which are shown at the top left, as opposed to a mixed-use building. So as a result, this proposal aims to transfer the residential and non-residential density that would otherwise be assigned to Block 2 to both Block 3B, which is our site, as well as Block 4B. The first portion of this transfer has already been completed through a previous minor variance application, which was approved in November 2021. That application saw the transfer of approximately 4,300 square meters to Block 4B to facilitate a 16-story building. The second transfer, which is being proposed as part of this minor variance application, would see the remaining 500 square meters transferred to Building 3B, or Block 3B, excuse me. As a result, there is no net increase in density for the Sterling Road area being requested as part of this application. It is simply an reallocation of existing density. Next slide, please. Oh, perhaps we could go to the following slide. Thank you. Next slide, please. Thanks. This is a view of the as-of-right 8-story massing shown on the top, with the 14-story massing shown on the bottom, just to get a sense of the different scale of the proposal. And so in summary, we've been working diligently with city staff on this proposal through our associated site plan application. We've received a positive report from community planning and are in agreement with the recommended conditions. We've also received correspondence from Transportation Services, as was noted, which indicates no issues with the proposed parking variances. And so I think I'll leave it there for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a speaker standing by panel, so let's hear from that speaker.
Sarah, you've been unmuted. Sarah, are you there? You've been unmuted. Hi, Sarah, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Now we do hear you, yes.
Oh, there we go. That was so strange. My apologies. That's very strange. My apologies for taking up a few minutes there to try to figure out my audio. I'm here to represent 4 and now 6 families on Perth Avenue. And we're here with concerns in regards to the height increase for this variance.
Sarah, just hang on for a moment, please. I need you to state your name for the record, please.
My apologies. My apologies. This is Sarah McCarthy, and I am at 38 Perth Avenue.
Very good. Go ahead, please.
Great. So we are here to raise concerns in regards to the variance application for 150 Sterling. In particular, in regards to the increase in the height from 8 stories to 14 stories. The 14 stories faces the 2 original roads within the Junction Triangle area, specifically Perth between Stirling and Bloor, and Stirling between Stirling and Bloor, the way that that's lined up. And so that 14-story building will face into those 2 original spaces. As a community, of course, we're very supportive of the collective redevelopment of the area, but we were definitely not in the understanding that the density would be moved from the park area at that corner to the building in order to increase this significantly. We are also very supportive of the height increases that have been approved or in approval on Bloor Street and on the other main throughways. But we are definitely hoping that we can stay with the initial zoning within the community areas. And we feel that the difference between 8 stories and 14 stories is quite significant within the community.
Sarah?
Yep, that's all I've got.
Okay. And
so that was that I would like consideration by the committee in regards to that.
Oh, okay.
As you know, this is an area with a significant amount of development, and this is right in the middle.
And I have a question for you. Can these matters that you've outlined, the impact of those upon the neighborhood, well, what will they be? What will the impacts look like?
So along Perth Avenue and Stirling Avenue, these are all they're all single family homes, row homes and duplexes. And they're all sort of a maximum of 3 stories. The automotive building that we've been discussing, I think, is 10 stories. And that is the largest building in the area by far. So it is, when you get off of Bloor, definitely a low rise area. I think, and the new building that's just in the process of being completed, that's right next to the automotive building, is also 8 stories at a maximum. So the zoning says that the block we're talking about today, and then another block that's right next to the Perth townhouses, was also going to be 8 stories. with the idea that then that core area of Junction Triangle was all going to be low-rise towers. An increase from 8 to 14 stories would put sort of what I would consider a mid-sized tower in the middle of all of those lower buildings. The 16-story tower that was referenced is on the other side of Sterling, quite a few blocks away from the considered location that we're talking about right now, and from the one-story buildings.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go back now then to the agent, who'll have a chance to respond to the concerns you've raised.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, for your comments. Very much appreciated. I'll try to respond to each and every one as best I can. In terms of the height, I mean, just sort of going back to the presentation, you know, we think the way that the height is deployed within this revised proposal makes more sense than the 8-story scheme and provides for a more functional building. One of the concerns that we heard, not only working through with city staff, but also the community, was really opening up this corner, the bend here at Sterling shown in this rendering here, which really, one, provides a better view and emphasis on the existing MOCA building, and two, provides a more pedestrian level scale around this bend. In terms of the height, we think 14 stories is appropriate here for a couple of reasons. One, I mean, the heights that were approved as of right within the 2015 bylaw do go up to 14 stories, which includes 14 stories on block 4B, which was the other approval that I referenced, which received minor variance approval for 16 stories, as well as a 10-story building on block 5B, which is on the west side of this site. So those are two considerations we've also taken into account, in addition to the fact that while the MOCA building is lower in terms of stories, it's actually a much taller building and has a height of about 45 meters, which matches the height of our building, excluding the mechanical penthouse. So that's another consideration we've taken into account with respect to the height. We've also looked at, you know, the built form impacts in terms of separation distances and providing transition to those neighborhoods to the north that you were speaking to. We think that the height is appropriately buffered on the site by way of the step backs above the base building, as well as a separation distance from by way of Sterling Road itself. In addition to the fact that we have worked through a shadow study and looked at the shadows in detail with city staff. And we think that, you know, given all of those considerations, the height is appropriate for this site. And the last thing I'll just touch on more broadly is this is a mixed use area, and it is in a close proximity to transit. We have the Lower Lansdowne GO station immediately to the northeast of the site, in addition to the existing transit. So all of these considerations are things that we've taken into account. And I'll just reiterate again that we're not looking to increase the density on this site. It's more of a reallocation of density within the Sterling Road area. Yeah, so I'll leave it there, and thanks again for your comments.
Panel members, questions for the applicant, or the agent? I'm not hearing any. Okay. So we can take this application into committee for what discussion there may be, moving toward a motion. Any thoughts, panel? Mr. Nipfel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm supportive of the application. I think it's a reasonable building. The height of 14 stories to me is not in any way out of line, given that there is a 16-story building, I believe, to the west, a 10-story building to the east. And it's precipitated by a transfer of densities that resulted in a park being provided closer to the townhouses that were referenced by the lady that spoke. I think all things considered, that transfer of density was a good idea for the existing residents. And I would argue that ultimately transferring the density and therefore the height further to this site makes a lot of sense in a whole bunch of areas. I don't see a problem with this application. I think it's quite consistent with its surroundings. I think the applicant did a remarkable job of presenting the project succinctly, and I think rather clearly with regard to what he was trying to do, and I think has succeeded in doing. Also, this project is subject to a parallel site plan control application, which is going to address a lot of design issues at a more detailed level than we will be dealing with. So having said all that, Mr. Chairman, I don't frankly have any difficulty with the application, and I would like to move approval of the application subject to the abbreviated planning condition, with the first condition deleted and only the second condition retaining, as per the discussion with the Secretary Treasurer.
Very good. Okay. Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded by Mr. Chang. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show of hands. And that vote is unanimous. It carries the motion, and the application is approved. That takes the panel along to number 25. '64 Lavinia Avenue. On this application, panel has before it submitted materials, 4 form letters in support from addresses on Lavinia. There's correspondence in support from William H. Roberts, solicitor, on behalf of a group of people at 60, 66, 68, 70, and 72 Lavinia. There is interest or concern expressed in correspondence from the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association, April 20th. So, let's have the applicant join us, please.
Committee. My name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 64 Lavinia Avenue, and I'm with replacement sign located at 911 Davenport Road.
Very good. You have 5 minutes to present your proposal to the panel. Please proceed.
In order to save some time for the panel, I wonder if it's just simply because there's someone who might be listed in opposition. I believe this is the community group wanting to confirm that we are continuing with the agreement that the client had agreed to earlier on last week, and is in the letters that they submitted, in order to have privacy screen on the rear deck and maintain the access to the neighbors' front pad parking. We still continue to agree to that. We're fine with those conditions from them. So if that's the main point of the presentation at this moment, then I just want to make that clear that that is what we're going to move forward with. But I'm happy to proceed with the rest of the presentation if required as well.
Well, there are 1, 2, 3 speakers registered, but we of course don't know precisely what their concerns are. So go ahead with your presentation, and we'll simply go through those who have registered in advance, and we will hear their submissions.
Fair enough. So as you pointed out, we have 4 letters of support, and there are agreements made with the neighbors along some of the other properties along the street, such as 66 and 68. Upon designing the additions, our clients stressed that this is something they wanted to ensure it's a place that they could stay in the long run, and we think we achieved this by limiting the variances as much as possible. This is a brand new home with only 4 variances, while still giving them everything they're looking for on the property. and keeping in the characteristics of the neighborhood and generally in line with the community was looking for. With that, although we're asking for a 0.72 floor space index, this is only a difference of 36.88 square meters or 0.12 FSI in relation to the permitted conditions for the lot. We're also well below other approvals in the area, such as 94 Lavinia, which has a FSI of 0.81. Although there's a variance for the building depth, we're actually in line with the existing dwelling that's being demolished. As you may be aware, building depth is measured from the front yard setback to the rearmost wall. We're actually 2 inches shorter than that. This allows us to keep in line with the overall building length as well, which would actually be measured from the front wall of the house. So the only reason we have the front depth variance is because of the difference of the setbacks of the house on either side here. As you can see, there's quite a big step in for 62 versus 66 on what's generally a straight street. This is an angled lot. Excuse me. Similar to our building depth, our use is also an improvement, as it's only for the south elevation. The current house was only 1 foot from the side setback, or 0.3 meters. Our new proposed 2-story dwelling will be 1.5 feet, or 0.45 meters, which also improves on the use setback versus the existing condition, which was under 1.5 meters, and our proposed use is 1.17. The canopy variance, that's just in relation to the overall deck. We're just slightly beyond the outskirts of the deck to provide adequate coverage in terms of rainwater and runoff. This is a very minor variance and is still well within permitted encroachments in general, but because it goes beyond the footprint of the canopy itself, automatically gets triggered as a variance for the front porch. That is in regards to all the variances, as I mentioned earlier. We've had extensive discussions with the neighbors. We've come to agreements with them to provide privacy screening on the rear deck, even though that's generally not a requirement for a low-level deck such as this. We're more than happy to oblige in order to meet their concerns. Open any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Nipfel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without getting into all the details, can you tell me if the site plan that we have here before us, does it reflect the solution to the driveway issue, or because I don't understand the condition in the Swansea Residents Association. It talks about changing the driveway or altering it. Does what we have before us satisfy that requirement, or will it result in changes to the site plan?
Any changes to the site plan should be quite minor and should still fit within the allowed soft landscaping and other requirements for the front yard, which we don't have any variances of. The existing curb cut is to remain the same. We're simply proposing some changes to the way we access the lot for our own parking. We're not really trying to affect their front parking situation. We're trying to leave that section alone as much as possible. We're just creating a driveway that curves over to our own building so we can park within the dwelling itself, which is also what it helps affect our overall building length, just to allow for that interior parking.
So if there was a condition that it tied approval to your site plan, that wouldn't necessarily be at odds with this agreement, or would it?
I don't believe it would, and it's my understanding that even if we are tied to the site plan itself, as long as the revisions are minor, so if it's a slight change in the angle of the driveway just to allow for that agreement to continue as outlined, then that would be deemed acceptable within the means of the zoning examiner signing off, even if tied to the site plan itself.
Okay, thanks very much.
Through the chair, in terms of a condition tying to an arrangement for or agreement for a driveway or parking, in this case, there are no variances in that regard, and there's no comments from Transportation Services. We cannot impose an agreement that is a civil matter. We have no comment from Transportation. We cannot just impose a condition to the satisfaction of Transportation, who has not actually themselves put forward this recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, then let's go to the first pre-registered speaker. And is this Mr. Roberts?
Yes, it is. So let me first take on your Secretary Treasurer. If this was before the TLAB or the OLT, they can oppose any condition with the consent of the other owner, and it is somewhat related to the site plan, and let me explain. That front yard parking is off of what was a mutual driveway. And if you look at the existing plan, you can see the cement double staff went all the way back to past where there was a cut out of the one house at 66 and back towards the back of 64. The concern is because the driveway deviates before the end of that front yard parking pad, it may result in the front yard parking pad becoming illegal. So, in which case, the owner of 66 may have to reapply and go through the whole process again. Basically, 9.2 of the Ontario Land Tribunals Act, and consequently the TLAB, you can oppose any condition that's advisable. And while you can say these variances aren't related per se to the proposal, you remember there are 4 tests: appropriate and desirable. So it's appropriate and desirable to approve a proposal that may result in the front yard parking pad becoming illegal. I would say it is not, and that is your broader jurisdiction. I don't want to get into a big legal argument on this, but if you want to encourage neighbors going to battle, by all means, start saying conditions can't apply because there's no legal right. What also bothers me is in your earlier case, the forestry department is excluded where you approve a building. They cannot protect the tree unless there's a condition saying forestry can protect the tree. That's what the private tree bylaw says. So with all due respect, please impose both conditions. One is obvious, you do it all the time. The other one, it's simply saying that nothing should be done to make the parking pad illegal. And that's an appropriate and desirable thing unless it's your intention to undermine an agreement amongst the community. And given there is no rights of appeal these days, this matter cannot be dealt with later on. Other issues could have been raised. They weren't raised because of an agreement between the community to resolve the matter. So I strongly urge you, despite what your Secretary Treasurer is saying, is if the owner consents, the other percent, this is not a civil matter. This is simply saying that the design should not be done in such a way as it negatively impacts on that parking lot. And to be quite honest, Transportation may not have put their mind to the issue. But I'm familiar with it because I was involved with the development of the front yard parking, and where the front yard parking is on a mutual driveway, you're allowed to go over one side on either side. If that driveway terminates before the front yard parking is finished, that could create an issue. That's all I'm saying. We didn't want to hold this process up or do anything else. So the condition is there simply to allow the matter to be resolved. If it's not an issue, it will not be an issue. If it is an issue, no one wants to get this thing tied up in the courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, moderator.
Ruby, you've been unmuted.
I just support everything that Mr. Roberts has said on our behalf. I am a neighbor and have the exact concerns that he articulated. Appreciate that. Your consideration to our appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Gail, you've been unmuted.
Hi, my name is Gail Oxtoby. I'm the homeowner of 66 Lavinia, the one with the parking in the front. And Bill Roberts has expressed the concerns that we have with respect to that spot. It is a permitted spot. It has been there for a great deal of years. The street has a very big parking shortage. So if there is a condition that can be placed on the development of the property such that the parking is not impacted, that would be greatly appreciated. I believe that the other condition with respect to the privacy screen, even though it is at a lower level than what you might be accustomed to in putting in, the porch is raised, and when people are standing back there, it is a recreational porch. They will be looking directly down into my backyard. So we have tremendous concerns about the impacts of the parking and with the privacy in the backyard.
Thank you very much. Okay. Moderator, next speaker.
Kelly, you've been unmuted.
Hi, it's Kelly Smith from number 70 Lavinia. Mr. Roberts accurately covered everything that we have concerns with, in particular the front pad parking of our neighbors at number 66. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Keith, you've been unmuted.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Please state your name.
Yes, thank you. I'm Keith Dix. I'm at 68 Lavinia Avenue, and thank you, members of the committee, for receiving us. Again, I would simply echo everything that our solicitor, Bill Roberts, has said regarding the concerns of both the parking plus the privacy. I'd also like to reiterate that I think we feel we've had a very productive discussion with the developer, and that's been amicable, and all parties have comfortably agreed to this. And we would like the Committee of Adjustment to both document and honor this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Veronica, you've been unmuted.
Okay. Hi, my name is Veronica Wynn, and I'm the president of the Swansea Area Ratepayers Association and Group. We were responsible, we were approached by the neighbours to help facilitate a meeting with the applicant, and it was very productive. We met on site, and we saw exactly what the neighbours were talking about, and exactly as described by Mr. Roberts, and the outcome was that the applicant would agree. And as you can see from my letter, I did have a confirmation. I sent a letter thinking I think it's the Swansea Ratepayers letter. Swansea Ratepayers. There you go. You see, it's a big arrow, and then it's the Swansea Ratepayers letter. It's not the okay. Anyway, it's there, and it was a very, as Mr. Dick said, it was very amicable, and as you can see, we have written on the letter at the back the conditions for settlement. We actually made it easier so that you could just copy these conditions at the end of your decision. But the reason why we made it an interest and concern based on concern, we called it a letter of conditions. But if the conditions weren't met or settled, accepted as a settlement, then we would be objecting to it. So. But I think this is exactly how things should go in a neighborhood, and working through the trials and tribulations of an application and its impact on neighbors. And I think you should respect the conditions as written in there and put them at the end of the decision for greater certainty. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Panel questions for this person? No. Hearing none, okay. So let's go back to the agent, who will have a chance to respond.
Hi, yes. So as previously stated, we are in agreement with the conditions that the client came to agreements with the neighbors, and homeowner association. As per how you can apply these to our plans, I leave that in the hands of committee, as I'm not sure exactly what kind of legal matters you guys are able to tie yourselves to in this kind of case. But we are okay with the conditions as agreed upon.
Very good. Any panel, any other questions? Okay. Let us then take the application into committee for discussion as we move toward a motion. Mr. Nipfel, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I frankly, with the exception of the two issues that were of concern to the citizens, I personally don't have any difficulty with this application. I think it's quite reasonable. I think that the condition for screening doesn't pose any problems. I think perhaps it was a misunderstanding, but we put screening conditions on balconies and decks all the time, and I don't see any reason to not do the same in this case. I do understand the Secretary Treasurer's reservations about the way that the second condition about the driveway is worded, because we can't require a city agency to enforce something that they didn't have any power in proposing. I'm wondering if an alternative might be a condition that the development of this land is to in no way negatively impact the front yard parking pad at 66 Lavinia Avenue. It's the same idea, but it is worded as final. The way that the wording is in the proposals to us, it sounds as though there's a multitude of variations, and we don't know what we're approving because we don't see those variations. But as I listened further to the comments, it sounds as though, and reasonably so, the ratepayer, the people next door, don't want their front yard parking space in any way encumbered so that they have to reapply. Having said that, and unless the Secretary Treasurer has real grave concerns with that approach, I would like to move approval of the application subject to screening as requested on the rear deck, and subject to development of this land is undertaken in a way that does not negatively impact the existing front yard parking pad at 66 Lavinia Avenue.
Okay, we'll just hold it there while we hear from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer on this matter before we go for a second. Go ahead, please.
Through the chair, in regards to that condition, still, who is it to the satisfaction of, and who is enforcing that? Is the concern. So I am of the opinion that you're not able to impose that condition either.
I don't see how it falls within our authority. I really don't.
Can it, instead of a condition, then, can it be a note that says the owners agree, and then the statement is that? I think they want a record of the agreement, and would it make sense, similar to the previous application that we dealt with, where we had a condition about preserving a tree? Can we just note in the minutes that the owners agree that the development of this site will in no way impact the existing parking pad at 66 Lavinia Avenue?
Maybe something by way of a just a note of record. It's the committee's understanding that
well, it's more than our understanding. The parties have acknowledged that. So I guess what we're doing is what we did last time. What I'm suggesting is what we did last time is we moved it from condition into a comment. And so as a comment that the owners, that the applicant has agreed that the development of the site will proceed in a way that does not negatively impact the existing front yard parking pad at 66 Lavinia Avenue. And it's a statement, it's not a condition.
Okay. Through the chair, we can add that as a note for the record in the minutes, but it would still not be enforceable.
Yeah, not be enforceable, but we can add it as a note for the record. No note for the record would be the most we could do. All that indicates is that we heard it discussed, and it's a note for the record.
Which I think, Mr. Chairman, in this case, that should be sufficient because notwithstanding Mr. Roberts' comment, which I'm in no way challenging his legal ability. I mean, he's probably quite right. I'm just trying to find an avenue for approval of the application and addressing the concerns of the community. There's goodwill on both sides in this case. And basically what we're doing is we're reflecting the goodwill in the minutes of the meeting. I wonder what my colleagues think.
Let's hear from them. Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good solution, Carl. And partly just because this licensed space at 66 is within the right of way, I think it's safer to do it as a comment rather than as a condition, right? Because then we're getting into giving someone rights, giving one property's rights to another property. So I think this is a good solution.
Mr. Cheng, any thought?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that can protect both sides.
Okay. So, Mr. Nitfeld has put a motion forward. It has not yet been seconded. Mr. Reed is seconding it. Okay. I think we know what we're voting on here. So it is moved and seconded to approve the application presented that is before the committee. And all those in favor, please show of hands. That vote is unanimous to carry the motion. The application is so approved.
Mr. Chairman, might we just comment that the refreshing nature of the collaboration, this is exactly what we hope to happen on all applications, which is positive collaboration. In this case, it's been very fruitful.
Quite so. All right then, and with that, panel moves along to number 26. .246 Lisgar Street. Before us are submitted materials, staff report, urban forestry, correspondence supporting from 73 Mackenzie Crescent, April the 4th. And let's have the agent join us, please.
Henriquez. I'm the agent for this application at 543 Concord Avenue, Toronto, Ontario.
Very good. Good afternoon, Mr. Henriquez. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Yes, basically we're proposing a rear addition. In this area of Lisgar, lots are very narrow and very long, and it's very typical for houses to be narrow and exceed the allowable amount. In our case here, our addition that we're being proposed is going to be in line with both adjacent neighbors, so we're not going beyond any neighbor, so it shouldn't impact anybody.
Okay. Any questions, panel, for the speaker? Mr. Cheng, go ahead.
I just want to confirm with the applicant that you know there's a forestry report, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about that tree, please?
Just reading the report now because I didn't get to see it. There's no tree that we're within the proximity of the distance. I don't see how the actual addition will impact this tree, but we can get an arborist to verify that because we are within the limiting distance of the construction to the tree.
So that's I'm trying to learn about that too. So do you mind going to the site plan and show us where is the tree?
There's no tree on our property. I don't see any tree that's within that distance. There's
Yeah,
no
so
tree on our proposed property, and I didn't see any tree that's even nowhere near our additional. I don't understand why that's
yeah.
there.
But so you when did you receive this forestry report?
I didn't notice it until you mentioned it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It is reference to your address, and I think I'm at the right case.
Yeah, I
I've
don't
been
know.
looking at it checking it 10 times, more than 10. I'm like, okay, yeah, trying to find a tree. That's what I asked you.
There's no tree that I could see from
Okay.
where we're proposing the addition.
All right.
Forestry has, forestry's not identifying any particular tree that I can see, are they? I don't see forestry. I think they're suggesting their usual conditions would apply, but as far as a particular tree, I don't see it where it's mentioned. So let's not get bogged down in that. We do have a speaker standing by to speak in opposition. So,
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've made 5 attempts to locate the speaker, and I was unable to locate her.
okay. Okay, so unfortunately, we're able, after persistent attempts, to not be able to raise the speaker that was registered. So, panel members, any further questions for the applicant, the agent?
No, I'm ready to support the application, but I don't know what to do with the tree report.
Well, just
I'm
make it
looking
subject to
at-
forestry.
I'm looking at,
Even if we go to Google Maps, I can't see a
there's
tree.
nothing there. I'm in Google Maps too. There's no tree. So if you put it in and there's no tree, then the condition doesn't mean anything. So there's no harm in putting it in. But if you look at the aerial views on Google Map, there's no tree.
Okay. So we can still approve it subject to forestry condition number 2 without any restriction to the applicant, I guess. I just want to make sure that because when at the time the applicant goes to the building permit application and an inspector comes in and asks about the tree, then
I think you should make it subject to, make your proposal or your motion subject to forestry too, and you'll be fine.
okay, all right. I'll make the motion to support it subject to forestry number 2.
That is seconded by Mr. Nipfel. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion and to approve the application. Thank you. And with that, panel moves along to number 27, on which we have a request to defer. So let's have the applicant join us, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm still trying to locate the agent.
Okay, and how many speakers standing by do you have?
There are 2 speakers.
Two
on
standing by.
Yep.
But we can't find the agent.
Is it possible that the agent assumed since he'd requested the deferral that it was automatic and that he didn't need to stay?
You know, I'm sure it's possible, yeah. Was the agent with us before, moderator, and then? No, the agent has not been with us, Mr. Nipfel. The agent has not been with us at all. But we do have people standing by ready to speak in opposition. And so...
Through the chair, the applicant's correspondence does indicate that they will be attending the hearing.
Thank you. Okay. Well, in that case, I think we should probably set this application aside briefly to see if the moderator can, through continued effort, get the agent with us and come back to it. We'll move on to number 28. And my apology to those standing by who pre-registered to speak in opposition. We do need the agent here to explain why the deferral request is being made. It's up to the panel to decide whether or not to grant that request, and the panel would be asking for the input of those who are dutifully standing by to speak. But the panel will ultimately make the decision whether to defer or to hear the application today. We go on to number 28. 122 Havelock Street. On this application, committee has before it submitted materials, 5 photographs of the site, cover letter from the planner. We have support correspondence, a 5-signature petition from addresses on Havelock. We have interest or concern expressed in correspondence from 126 Havelock. And we have opposition expressed in correspondence from 114 Havelock. So let's have the agent join us, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. State your name, please.
Yes, thank you. Graham Barrett, SGL Planning and Design, 1547 Bloor Street West, agent for the owners of 122 Havelock Street.
Very good, thanks. Moderator, on this application, do we have one opposition speaker standing by?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the speaker is on standby.
Very good, okay. Okay, Mr. Barrett, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The dwelling on this property is currently being renovated. Part of these renovations is a new 2-car garage at the rear of the subject property, which is already under construction with a building permit. The owners have had a change of heart and decided they'd like to enlarge this garage and construct a garden suite. Parking for 2 cars will be provided on the ground floor as originally planned, along with a foyer, powder room, and laundry/furnace room. The second floor will contain a living dining area, kitchen, and bedroom with full bathroom. It's quite a large lot, particularly for downtown, and it can accommodate the proposed ancillary building, which has been designed to fit with the existing character of the dwelling and the neighborhood. 5 minor variances from the zoning bylaw are being requested. I've provided explanations for these in the cover letter I submitted, and I'm happy to go through them. But I think the key points are there will still be ample green space in the rear yard. This is shown on page 2 of my letter. Highlighted the green space we'll provide in the backyard. Also on the south side, where a reduced side yard setback is being requested, there are no windows on the proposed structure, and the second floor is set back further than the ground floor, which is also shown on page 3 of the letter I submitted. I know there's a bit of a lag between the screen and what's going out sometimes, but if that could be put up on screen, I'd appreciate it. The angular plane is being penetrated slightly to create adequate ceiling heights on the second floor of the ancillary building. These penetrations are minor, and they're shown on pages 3 and 4 of the letter I submitted. The lot coverage is also minor in the context of the site, and it's really measured in 3 different ways. It's shown in the table on page 4 of the letter I submitted. When it's measured as a percentage of the lot area, it's quite low. 20% of the area of the lot is the maximum. This is 13.1% of the area of the lot. And it also has to be the lesser of 40% of the area of the rear yard, or 60 square meters. In this case, the ancillary structure is 27.6% of the area of the rear yard, or 83.78 square meters. So the variance is required when measured in terms of square meters, but not when measured by a percentage of the area of the rear yard, pardon me. Subject site's very close to transit, including the Bloor subway line, schools, shopping, including the Dufferin Mall, places of worship, so on. It's an ideal location for an additional rental unit. There are no neighbors at the rear. Property is immediately adjacent to Dufferin Grove Park. There are no windows on the side of the building facing the property to the south, and a substantial side yard setback of 2.32 meters, or about 7.5 feet, on the north side. This proposal is arguably a better use of the land than simply having a garage. The site can accommodate the structure and an additional unit, and it will create a highly desirable rental unit in a great neighborhood. The owners have made an effort to speak with their neighbors, and as you mentioned, 5 have signed a letter in support. I've spoken with planning staff about this proposal, and they've indicated they have no concerns. I'm of the opinion that this proposal passes the 4 tests. The variances are minor in the context of the site. The proposal meets the intent of the zoning bylaw for a garden suite in a residential zone, and also the intent of the neighborhood's land use designation. It's desirable, it's appropriate. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions at this stage. Let's go to the speaker standing by.
Hi there.
Hello
Hi there. My name's Evelyn Shore. Hi. And I live at 114 Havelock.
Go ahead, you have 5 minutes. Tell us about the impact
Thank
on
you.
you.
Well, there's a number of things. So I have a number of concerns. One is my privacy in my backyard. And also like I also back onto Dufferin Grove. I'm one house over from this house. And my views towards the park will be negatively impacted for my entire house because that is the way that I look. So this 2-story building will block quite a bit of my view. And also the people facing, what direction is that? East will be able to easily look into my backyard. So that's number one. That's how that negatively impacts me. Number 2 is I don't understand how you can apply for a variance to change an existing 1-story garage when there is no existing garage. There was a garage on their original permit application, and it was never built. And they've already done all the footings and everything for this structure that they're proposing. You can see that there's trees right at their fence line at the park. I don't think anybody looked at that as far as if it was going to be impacted doing footings so close to those trees. And the entire lot is basically covered in compacted gravel. So I don't think there's going to be any of this soft landscaping that they've proposed on either side of the driveway. And it seems to me that once they've now done this huge addition, they've already built the huge addition, then they applied for this variance based on the back part of the house being at the new addition as opposed to where it initially was with the house. I'm not opposed to garden suites. I'm not opposed to, it is a big lot, but it feels to me that pretty much all the lot is now covered, and there doesn't appear to be any green space, as I said. And I'm concerned that this was built without a permit to start.
Let me ask you this. So just a second now. So this is something I want to be clear on. So there is no existing 1-story ancillary building?
No, there hasn't. I've lived here for 15 years. There never has been.
Is it grass, or is it, how would you describe
it was all grass.
So there's no garage there. There's no existing one-story ancillary
No,
building. All
but
right.
they applied for that in their original permit.
All right.
Where they've been under construction for about 2 years, so they've built a massive addition at the back with also decks on the back that are overlooking my backyard. I don't know if they're planning to put any screening. That didn't come up onto the committee. I didn't get a
No.
letter about any
That's
variances
not the
for that.
purpose of this application. Okay.
No, I know. I'm just trying to explain the.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. That's most interesting. We'll need to hear what the applicant has to say in that regard.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
questions, panel, for this speaker?
Mr. Chairman, I stand to be corrected, but I believe the applicant in his comments indicated that he's working under an existing permit and that it includes the alterations to the house and the construction of a one-story garage in the rear yard. I think that's part of a prior permit, but you might ask him. But I believe that's what he said when he started.
All right. I'm so, thank you, Mr. Nipfel, because that could explain this all. Okay, let's go back to the applicant and give him an opportunity to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Nipfel is correct. There is an original building permit for the additions to the dwelling and a one-story two-car garage in the rear. That has been, or the plan has changed rather, and now the owner would like to build a larger ancillary structure with a garden suite. I agree that this phased approach isn't necessarily the best way of going about things. It can get confusing for staff, for neighbors. I know it can be challenging sometimes when things are going this way, but it is what it is. So I'd like to address a few of the comments made by the neighbor. As for privacy and overlook conditions, for one, there are no windows facing south towards her property. She is 2 doors down at 114 Havelock. I did a very rough calculation, and the south side wall of the proposed ancillary structure is more than 22 meters away from the rear corner of the home at 114 Havelock, and that's greater than 72 feet. So it's not even shown on the site plan because it's 2 doors over. So quite a distance away for overlook conditions, privacy conditions, overlook conditions from the second-story windows of this ancillary building would be really no different than any second or third-story window from a neighboring dwelling looking down into a rear yard. It's a fact of life when you're living in a dense downtown area. The rear yard is currently compacted gravel, that is true. This is an active construction site with a major renovation underway for the dwelling. Equipment and trucks need access, parking, so on, as shown in some of the images she submitted with her letter, and gravel certainly makes this easier. The rear yard will be restored to soft landscaping as shown on the site plan when the other construction has been completed. No variances for lot coverage for the dwelling were required. No variances were identified by zoning for this current application related to coverage other than for the ancillary structure on its own, and a complete site plan was provided. The neighbor is correct that the foundation has been constructed for the enlarged ancillary structure. This was done by the owner's contractor prematurely. I've informed them that should this committee refuse this application, the portion of the foundation that exceeds that which already has a building permit will have to be removed, and they understand that. It's another problem of doing things in a phased approach. As for the neighbor's point about the view of the park being impeded, so again, it's 2 doors over. She'll still have a nice clear view across the rear yard of her own home and the rear yard of the adjacent home at 118 Havelock. So I don't really think the impact on a view of the park is significant. Beyond that, I still maintain that this passes the 4 tests. I think this property is really quite impressive. The principal dwelling on it is very nice. It's old. It's being renovated in a very tasteful way that fits with the character of the neighborhood. And this structure echoes that, really. I think it's a very interesting and welcome addition to the property. I don't live too far away from it, so doing my site visit wasn't a very long walk, and I think it's a great addition to the neighborhood, and it passes the 4 tests. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions here, panel, for the applicant? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. It is a large lot, as has been said a few times, and usually with large lots, it's easier to get to meet your soft landscaping requirements. So I'm wondering why there's still a deficiency, and if you are open to making any changes to remediate or rectify that situation.
Just a moment, let me just pull it up in front of me. So the variance for soft landscaping is for the area between the rear main wall of the residential building and the rear lot line. So that's impacted by the structure itself and the driveway that comes around to the parking spaces in the rear yard. I mean, I've seen many times in community of adjustment where permeable pavers are encouraged, and I don't think that would be a problem. So that would help mitigate this concern for soft landscaping. I also think it's important to note that this is immediately adjacent to Dufferin Grove Park and is ample green space, and that helps to mitigate standard concerns regarding drainage and so on. And there's still a substantial amount of green space, soft landscaping being provided in the front and sides of the subject site, and a large portion of the rear yard, including the land at the rear and sides of the proposed ancillary structure, will be soft landscaping, which is shown in Figure 1 of the letter that I provided. So I still think there's a great deal of soft landscaping being provided, but if permeable pavers would help, then I'm sure that's something that our client would be open to.
Okay, thanks.
Where would the permeable pavers go? There's a very long driveway, and then there's a triangular entrance at the end of the driveway into the garage. Are you recommending that the entire driveway would be permeable pavers?
No, I'm not entirely sure. That's a good question. And again, I'm not the designer, so to make this kind of call on the fly is difficult for me. Not sure what else, if perhaps the committee has any other suggestions of what they'd like to see happen here.
Well, the committee is concerned about the fact that you're, through your design choices, you are 10% deficient on soft landscaping, and so we want to mitigate that or remove it. We want to do very well here on this because the park is fine, but the sharp focus on soft landscaping is due to the fact that the current view is that each property should do its very best to absorb its own stormwater. And so that's why we're very concerned when design choices impact and create deficiencies in soft landscaping.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that. I suppose the best suggestion that I would have at the moment is if this committee is willing to hold this matter down for a moment, I'll contact my client and see what they can do in terms of permeable pavers in the rear yard and where to start those in relation to the driveway that, as you said, extends all the way to the street. It's quite a long drive. And perhaps we can revisit this in a few moments.
I don't see a problem with that. I think it's probably a good idea. So we're going to, we have another set aside on number 27. So we will set yours aside and return to it as we are able. So we're going to move on to another application. We're going to go back to number 27 to see if it perhaps can be dealt with now. So yes, we'll come back to you on number 28. Thank you.
Thank you. I will remain on WebEx, and I'll just make a quick call, and I'll be ready and waiting when you want to speak to me again.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Moderator, on 27, have we been able to make contact yet?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was able to locate the agent.
Well, very good. So let's go to 27 then. So panel, we're going back to 27. Moderator has found and raised the agent.
Andrew, you've been unmuted.
Hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. State your name, please.
Okay. Great. So I'm Andrew Dales. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Andrew Dales, the planning consultant for the owners of 48 Admiral Road. I was actually here in the hearing the whole time. I'm not sure why I wasn't able to be seen, but anyways, let's move on. I'm here now.
Okay. So your name is Andrew Gale?
Andrew Dales, D-A-L-E-S.
Dale, okay. Dales.
Dales.
Okay. And do you work in conjunction with Amanda McKenzie?
I believe she's an employee of the architect.
Okay.
who's listed on as the applicant, although I was in touch with the committee yesterday to file a formal deferral request and to indicate that I was going to be presenting today.
Very good. Okay, let's go ahead then. Okay then. You have 5 minutes to present your application. Oh, you wanted to do a deferral. You wanted a deferral.
That's correct.
Wow, okay. So explain to the panel, please, why a deferral would make sense here.
Sure. So we very recently became aware of a report from urban forestry staff recommending that the committee refuse the building depth variance due to the potential impact on a tree that sits on the property line between 46 and 48 Admiral Road. We also recently became aware of a letter from the neighboring property owner at 46 Admiral Road expressing certain concerns with the proposal. So if the committee does grant the deferral request today, we will use that time to consult with the arborist and architect retained by the owner, as well as urban forestry staff to revise the proposal if necessary to address that boundary line tree. And the owners will also continue to use their best efforts to satisfy the concerns of the owner at 46 Admiral Road. And finally, if revisions to the plans are required based on the outcome of these consultations, the revised drawings will be submitted to Toronto Building for the purpose of obtaining a revised zoning bylaw notice, so the public hearing notice can be updated accordingly.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for that. At this stage, I am going to, we have some speakers that are pre-registered standing by, and we're going to just gauge their thoughts on the idea of deferral. They've been waiting patiently. It is the committee which will make the decision on deferral, but we're going to ask those standing by for their thoughts on the matter. So let's go to the first one, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Andrew Luzhetsky, and I represent the owner of number 46 Admiral, Mrs. Helen Ann Humphreys.
I just have one question for you, and that is, would you be in favor of or opposed to a deferral for this application for the reasons that the applicant just stated?
We have no objection to the deferral.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, next, let's go to the next person.
Helen, you've been unmuted.
Hello?
Helen, are you there? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
This speaker was actually represented by the previous speaker.
By Mr. Luzhetsky?
Yes.
Okay. How about Mark Baker? Is Mark
I
standing by?
believe he's from the same firm.
Okay, fine. I think we've covered that then. If the solicitor, Mr. Luzhetsky, is speaking for them. So, let us therefore return. Well, we'll go back now to the panel. So panel, request to defer here for the reasons you heard. And the person standing by in opposition is in support of the idea. So really it's up to the panel. Mr. Nipfel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move deferral to allow the applicant the opportunity to consult with forestry and the neighbor on tree preservation.
Thank you. Second to that, Mr. Reed seconds. Moved and seconded to defer. Those in favor, please show hands. That vote is unanimous to carry the motion. The application is deferred. Okay. Perhaps we'll give number 28 a little bit further time to connect with the party, and we'll go on to number 29, and then circle back to 28. So number 29 is 239 Greenwood Ave. On this application the panel has before it submitted materials. There's a set of revised plans, April the 18th. There are 2 photographs of the property, March 23. And there's a revision letter from the agent, April 19. Community Planning supplied a staff report. So let's have the agent join us now, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Henriquez, 543 Concord Avenue. I'm the agent for the owners of 239 Greenwood Avenue.
Good afternoon to you. Okay, panel members, any questions for Mr. Enriquez? Not hearing any. Okay. In that case, we can take the application into committee and move toward a motion. Mr. Reed, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is it's a rough variance to see. It's a very big gap, but I think that the options are very limited in terms of what the applicant could do to improve the situation. So I think what's being proposed as a condition by community planning makes sense, makes the best of a pretty bad situation. So I'm going to move approval of this application subject to the condition of community planning for permeable pavers in the rear.
Would you consider screening the balcony as well on the north and the south edges?
Sure, Carl.
Okay.
I'd be happy to second that.
And with that, Mr. Nipfel seconds. Moved and seconded, therefore, to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. And thank you. That vote is unanimous, carries the motion, and the application for 239 Greenwood is approved. Okay. Let's circle back now to number 28. And bring back the agent Graham Barrett.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chair, committee members.
Good afternoon.
Spoken with our client, and they are happy to agree to a condition that permeable pavers be used beginning at the rear wall of the dwelling, and then in the future they will consider whether to extend that all the way to the street. But to address the soft landscaping concerns in the rear yard, I believe that would be a good solution. So beginning at the rear wall of the dwelling, extending to the proposed ancillary building, and the triangular portion as shown on the site plan, all of that would be constructed with permeable pavers.
Okay, thanks for doing that. Let's we'll see what the panel. Let's take the application then panel into committee and see if that satisfies our soft landscaping concerns. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Reed?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think it's at least something, and it does improve the situation. I'm having some difficulty with this file. I think like this is a very large lot, and I know it well. But the soft yard, the soft landscaping is one issue, and then the other one is the size, 58 meters or whatever it is, instead of 83 meters instead of 60, for the lot coverage of the ancillary building, and that's the big building. Like it's almost as big as many houses in the neighborhood. So I don't know. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this one.
Okay. Well, let's thank you for that. Okay. Anyone else have thoughts on the size of the ancillary structure?
I'm having a similar problem. I begin to wonder if it's an ancillary structure because, as Mr. Reed had indicated, it's the size of a house. and it's at the expense of landscaping and or the rather exaggerated kind of deck walkway system at the back would have to alter. But I'm having the same problems that Mr. Reed's having with this one. I'm a little on the fence right now.
Does look like a garden suite more than that, right?
Pardon me?
It does look like a garden suite more than an
A
auxiliary.
really big one, yeah, yeah.
Through the chair, could the applicant kindly verify that a parking space is being proposed within this ancillary structure and that the garden suite is above?
Okay, we're going to come out of committee for a minute, go back to the applicant. And applicant, the question to you is whether a parking space is provided.
Yes, Mr. Chair, 2 parking spaces are provided on the ground floor. With a little bit of extra room for storage, lawnmowers, standard things that go into a garage. And then the portion at the north of the ancillary structure is part of the suite upstairs. It's a foyer, entrance, laundry, powder room, so on.
Through the chair, given the clarification and the purpose of the application, we would also have to amend the purpose to state and to construct a 2-story ancillary building, bracket 1 parking space with garden suite, just to clarify the initial purpose on the notice.
Okay. Well, panel, as I listen to your concerns, I'm hesitant too about the actual size of what we're looking at here.
Particularly, it is abutting a park behind, which makes it are we in committee now? We are,
I
right?
think we're just pondering here. We are
Okay,
pondering.
yeah. So I think given the numbers that we're looking at, even if we reject the proposal, they can still have a reasonable size garden suite with the parking down below. That's what I'm looking at now.
I'm sorry, would you mind repeating that?
What I was saying that is even if we don't approve any of these variances, they can still have a very decent size of a parking garage with a garden suite above, without the negative impact to the surroundings.
Right. We're dealing here, as I was saying before, we're dealing here with design choices that that create the first variance. And the, yeah.
Perhaps number 3 would be the only one I can support. I mean, variance number 3, so that it gives them the height, but without that GFA coverage and without the item number 1, where we can maintain that that coverage, and at least they can still have a reasonable size and workable shape for the garden suite and the garage. That's the best I can support.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder you got 2 architects on this panel, and both Aaron and I are not meaning to, but we're both looking at this as architects and chopping stuff off and changing it. I agree with Aaron that this would be relatively easy to meet the bylaw and still provide a workable laneway suite on this site. The question is, and you, Mr. Chairman, indicated that it's a design choice, and you're right. The question is whether that addition, and I gather it is an addition that provides for a really big vestibule, a ground floor washroom, and the furnace area on the ground floor, whether in fact that actually couldn't be made much smaller or almost eliminated, and then the suite above would be smaller. If that area were then transferred into landscaping, there probably wouldn't be a landscape variance. And the last variance, which has to do with lot coverage, would be substantially reduced. I'm wondering if there's any merit in deferring this application for the applicant to consider reducing the size of the building and increasing the amount of landscaping, if that's an avenue that would be profitable.
I mean, that's one option. The other option is to achieve the same end by refusing. But Mr. Reed, go ahead. You were about to speak.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I agree. I mean, I can't support this, I think, in its current form. I think that it's just too big, too wide, and really dominates the backyard and that whole series of backyards that fronts the park. So I do think that there is a relatively easy solution, getting rid of one parking spot or some of the solutions that Carl came up with. So I'd support a deferral as well.
Okay. I would go with that.
Yeah, I agree as well, yeah.
So we'd be deferring in order to allow the agent to basically, we're saying
Reconsider the footprint of the ancillary building to reduce the lot coverage and to increase the amount of soft landscaping in the rear yard.
That's good language. Okay. That's your motion, Mr. Vernifel?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Peter, did you move a motion, Peter? You didn't. Okay.
I'm moving the motion together. That's your motion. That's good.
Okay, my motion is we defer the application for the reasons that I just mentioned.
Let's make sure staff captured them. Staff, that's defer the application to allow the applicant to reconsider
the lot coverage of the ancillary building and the percentage of soft landscaping in the rear yard.
Improving soft landscaping.
Okay. I'll second that.
It is seconded. We have a motion to defer. Moved and seconded. Those in favor, please show of hands. And that vote is unanimous to carry the motion. The application is deferred. Thanks, panel. And we move along now to let's see where we are. Okay, the panels have now been back in session for about 2 hours, a little more. So let's recess at this time for a 10-minute recess and then return on number 3044 Nassau Street. Thank you. We don't have quorum. Okay. The panel resumes. We resume on number 30, 44 Nassau Street. On this panel, on this item, panel has before it plans submitted. There's a photograph of front yard trees. There is an order to comply, which affects the property. Revised zoning notice from the zoning building examiner. And there's a staff report from Transportation Services. So let's have the applicant join us, please, by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Sherwin Farzam. I'm representing the owner of the 44 NASSAU Street.
Good afternoon to you. Just stand by for a moment, please. Moderator, do we have the person of interest standing by too? Okay. Okay, then. May I speak to this person? If you put on the person speaking in interest.
Hi, Yifu, you've been unmuted.
Hi there. I'll defer to Ben Mansour if he's on the line as well.
Yes, I just have a question for you, and that is whether you're whether you wish to speak. Do you want to make a presentation, a submission to the panel,
Yes.
or are you just listening? Are you in opposition?
No, I'm
Yes.
going to allow.
Let me take it from here. Thank you, Alice. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, panel members. My name is Ben Mansour, and I'm the owner of property at 46 Nassau Street. I'm the property owner speaking on my own behalf and on behalf of Yifu, the other property owner. And we are at 46 Nassau, which is the property immediately adjacent.
No, excuse me. I'm sorry. I should have told you. I'm going to go back to the agent for his presentation, but I just wanted to determine briefly, just in a word, do you want to address the panel? I think
Yes.
you do by the way you're trying. So okay, fine. And so you shall. Stand by. Right now, it's the turn of the agent to speak, and we'll come back to you shortly. So please
Understood.
stand
Thank
by. And we'll go back now to the agent. And the agent, you have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead.
Sure. There was walkout built years ago without a permit of the building department, but the previous owner got a permit from the transportation. However, that walkout, leading the walkout to the neighbor number 46, and the encourage to the neighbor. Recently, notified by the inspector that walkout is not permitted, so the owner cannot open the door to the neighbor and encourage to the neighbor, and also the transportation have some concern. Anyhow, the new proposal is propose a new walkout and the landing facing to the street instead of the facing to the neighbor, and the encouragement is not going to be happen on the neighbor land, but the encouragement going to happen on the property that belongs to the city. And if you go to the numbers 203, is the existing condition of the land. It doesn't have a front setback, so there is no landscaping on the front, and there is no side setback over there. So it's almost attached to the property line. The other three items is actually related to the transportation, and the owner will communicate with transportation to get a permit for such a walkout to go to the basement. I believe we can get it because the previous owner got it. We are hoping we can get it too. So we are looking to committee members and the city give us the permission to get a basement from the front face, and also owner notified me that they're gonna put a new railing on top of the wall of the walkouts, and that they don't want to touch the fence between the 46 and the 44. Any question I can answer?
Okay, thank you. Yes. Question, Mr. Nipfel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh dear. I'm having trouble. I'm going to have to go out and come back in again.
Okay, well, why don't you do that? Yeah. Okay, we'll just give Mr. Nipfel a moment or two, see how fast it happens.
I think you can hear me, Mr. Chairman. I'm still trying to.
Yes, we do. Go ahead. You can make your question.
My point was, the applicant seemed to indicate that he was going to get approval to exit the basement from transportation. That's not the issue. The issue is he needs a variance from the bylaw for that, and that's what we're dealing with today. And I'm actually confused because there's two site plans. One shows, as he indicated, the stairway coming up and then exiting onto the neighbor's property, which presumably would create problems with the neighbor. And then the one that has a landing is one we're looking at leaving what's happened without permit. Is he proposing to change what is existing? In which case, are we looking at is he going to rebuild the entrance?
Applicant?
Yes, actually, that one built without a landing, and there is approach to and encourage to the neighbor. So new propose is that the building has been built 20 years ago. Sorry, not the building. The walkout has been built 20 years ago. So that one is approach to the neighbor. We want to change that approach and change the face to the street. However, it comes with so many items on the for the bylaws that 20 years ago they can give the permission to have front access, but right now there is no front access permitted. And also at that time, the transportation granted the permits, but right now they are looking for getting the permit from the city to approve these permits. So we are applying for the committee. I just want to grant this condition to get a new walkouts, replace the old walkouts, which is built 20 years ago. And then we apply for the transportation to get our permit, validate our permits.
So I'm sorry, I'm still having trouble. I'm going to have to leave again, but the question that I have is whether or not this is an existing condition we're recognizing or a brand new one. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go and try this again.
Mr. Nipfel, we can't see you, but maybe we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you as well, so
Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
Well, why don't you carry on with that thought you were just...
So are we looking at something which is to legalize and maintain, or are we looking at something new? Because it sounds as though what's there he wants to alter with new construction.
May I ask, open up the picture of the sign of the committee adjustment attached to the railing existing, that one. If you see the railing, the white railing is actual walkout, is built 20 years ago. But if you look at the face of the railing, is approach to the neighbor fence, which is installed recently. But that fence and that railing and that walkout built 20 years ago. However, by the transportation and all the items, we need to reface that face of the walkout to not going to the neighbor, but also goes to the street. But that one comes with a committee adjustment approval, need a committee adjustment approval.
Okay, so it looks now by the white fence, the white fence seems to go right over to the lot line, and connect up to the darker wooden fence. So I take it that walkout's not being used right now.
Well, that walkout is blocked because of that fence.
It's blocked right now because of the fence. Okay, so
Correct.
it exists there as a front walkout, but it's not being used, and you want to change it and make it come toward the street so that somebody could walk out.
It went off, and I
Yes,
can't
correct.
when I go back in, it echoes because I'm in twice. How do I turn this all off and start again?
Here, can I
That's to start. How do I turn it off?
turn the whole thing off?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now I'm hearing you okay, Mr. Nipfel, without the video. So maybe you want to stay as just on audio. But
Actually, the other picture shows better. The other picture, which is show the sign on the fence, on the railing.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for the applicant at this stage, or shall we go to the person who's standing by? Let's go to the person standing by and hear what they wish to tell us.
Hi, Ben. You've been unmuted and you may turn on your video.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee, and apologies about that hasty start. I did not mean to impact the order of how things are done. So my name is Ben Mansoura. I live at 46 Nassau Street. We are the adjacent property to the applicant, 44 Nassau. I'd like to start by saying that we thank the applicant and are appreciative of the initiative to address the existing problem of the basement, which seems to have been built some time ago with no permit. The existing basement staircase facing west onto the property line between 46 and 44 does not indeed allow for sufficient space without encroaching onto the property line. This has for years been an item that has been disputed, resulting in a deteriorating relationship between the two neighbors on either side of the property line. So we really very much appreciate the initiative. There have been concerns around accountability, liability, snow removal, etc., and for that basement entrance. As of this point, as I mentioned, we are very much in favor for the problem to be resolved. We have reviewed and had conversations with the property owner and the gentleman who was just speaking representing the property owner, and we have been reassured that the new proposal is to turn that landing facing south, and that the new proposal would allow for sufficient space and clearance for entry and exit using that staircase without encroachment beyond the west property line for the lot at 44 Nassau Street. I would like to state our position here that we are in favor conditionally, provided that the new solution fixes the encroachment problems and that the new staircase, landing, rail, and wall to which the rail is attached to, all newly constructed items will be fully contained within the lot of 44 Nassau Street and will not result in any encroachments onto our lot and our property, 46 Nassau.
Very good. I think I understand. And it makes sense completely. So very good. Thank you for that. Okay. Let us then, are there any more questions, panel, for the applicant? No. I think I understand now what he wants to do. So is Mr. Dipfeld, are you satisfied now with your understanding of the plan?
Yeah, I'm really happy that that I've got my computer fixed. Yeah, I gather what he's doing is he's improving an existing condition.
Yes. Yes. And transportation indicates they would impose it. They would want a condition imposed that would involve the applicant entering into an encroachment agreement. Okay. So let's take the application into committee, moving toward a motion. Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks, Chair. This is, I think, good, a good solution to an issue that's obviously been ongoing. And so I'm happy to hear that this is being resolved. I move approval of the application subject to the transportation condition, which would result in the applicant entering into an encroachment agreement.
Thank you. That is seconded by Mr. Nipfel. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to transportation. Those in favor, please show hands. Vote is unanimous. Motion carries. Application is approved. Number 31 is 627 Lonsdale. Here we're looking at the submitted materials. Cover letter from the agent, February. Arborist report, February. 2 form letters in support, 625 and 629 Lonsdale. And correspondence in opposition from 186 Montclair. Let's go to the applicant, or the agent.
It's Martin Rendell representing the owners of the property and the applicants.
Very good. And Mr. Rendell, do you know, is Raquel Catter, is she with you, or is she speaking in support? Does she wish to speak?
I'm not familiar with that person, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay. All right then. Panel members, are there any questions on your part of the applicant here? No. Not hearing any. So let's go to the person who wishes to speak in support, moderator, and bring on Raquel Catter.
Hi, Raquel. You've been unmuted, and you may turn on your video.
Hi, I'm a little confused by what I was signing up to do. I'm really mostly interested. I mean, I'm supportive of the concept, but I really just wanted to understand more about what's being proposed in addition to what was sent out. And it's hard for me to picture what they're planning, but I mostly support the idea. I'm not speaking in opposition, just more interested.
Thank you. Okay. Very good.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Welcome.
All right then. Let's go back. Well, there are no questions for the agent, I understand from the panel, so we can take the application into committee and move toward a motion. Anyone with thoughts on it or a motion? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks. I think this is a really nice solution to the garden suite. We often have, I mean, we saw one earlier today that was extremely large, but I think this is, even though it's triggering a few variances, I think it's within the spirit of the garden suite bylaw. It's using an existing footprint and going up modestly to almost like a dollhouse. I think it's a good solution, and I think the variances are minor, so I move approval.
Thank you. And that is seconded by Mr. Nipfel. Moved and seconded. Approval. Those in favor, please show your hands. That vote is unanimous. Motion carried. Application approved. On number 32, we have before us the submitted application materials. There is a 2020 Committee of Adjustment decision which affected the property. And there is correspondence both in support and in opposition to the proposal. In support from 223 LISGAR, 175 LISGAR, 24 Beaconsfield. In opposition from 4 Afton Avenue, 209 Lisgar, 213, 233, and 231 Lisgar. So I'll ask the agent to join us, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ian Cunha representing the owners of 225 Lisgar Street.
Very good. You have 5 minutes to present your proposal to the committee. Go ahead.
Before I begin my presentation, staff asked me to let you know that we need to make a correction in regards to the existing laneway suite. The existing laneway suite is a 2-story laneway suite and not a single story. I don't know if that had been submitted by the paperwork, but that's just a correction. It's an existing laneway suite, and it's 2 stories. By the way, the homeowner lives in that laneway suite. We're asking permission to use the existing basement as a 3rd unit in the main house. There's no exterior construction necessary. There's some interior alterations, and the application to the committee is not due to in order to comply. So we're asking the committee, based on one variance, to grant us the usage of the basement as a self-contained unit.
Okay. Panel members, any questions here? No? All right, then that's fairly straightforward. There is one speaker registered to speak in opposition. So let's go to that speaker.
Hello.
And have them join us by stating their name.
Hi, my name is Claire Tallarico, and I live at 4 Afton Avenue.
Excuse me, Claire. Claire, you have 5 minutes to present your concerns to the panel. Go ahead, please.
So I'm not going to take up 5 minutes. What I would like to do is understand, and I believe I'm speaking on behalf of everyone who sent a letter in with their concerns and objections, to understand exactly what the project is, because I'm looking at this construction right now, and what I am seeing is that the work is mostly complete. So I'm trying to understand how we've gone from a 2-story construction that went on for over a year to now looking to add more units. So it's really that I would like to understand the project, and my neighbors have quite eloquently described their concerns in their letters.
Just backtracking a moment, you'd like to understand, you mentioned the construction had gone on for about 2 years, and you're wondering how now they want, if you could finish that for me, because I missed what you said then.
Yeah, so how are we expanding a project that seemed to have been completed already?
Now I understand. Okay, thank you.
That is what I am trying to understand, and
Okay.
I think that's what other folks are trying to understand as well. Now, these are two, I may be speaking at the wrong time. You'll have to forgive me. There are 2 units. There are 2 buildings next door to each other, both of whom are on the docket today.
Right. Okay. Let's go back to the applicant.
Okay, and the projects are related because I believe it's the same builder. Different owners, same builder.
Okay. We'll go back now then to the applicant to ask him to give him an opportunity to clarify what you're asking about.
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, I wonder if there's the issue's more complicated. I believe the lady that's speaking has some confusion between or concerns between number 32 and 36 because they're side by side. They're both on the same street and they're side by side. So it might not be, the issue here is a simple one. They're going to, they're proposing to put an additional unit within the existing building. But she also mentioned there's 2 properties and they're side by, so it's 2 different applications. It's 32 and 36. So perhaps we could clarify, or maybe we could hear them together or one after another if it's the same applicant.
I think that makes sense to do it that way. Let's go back to the agent then. Agent, you've heard what the person said, and I'd ask you also to shed light on these two applications from the point of view of how they impact each other. And we'll listen to them together. We'll do 32 and then 36, and we'll do them separately, but consecutively. So, Agent, tell us how these two applications impact each other.
So, through you, Mr. Chairman, the homeowners are totally different. It's not the same homeowner. They are sharing the same builder, and we applied for a building permit to convert the existing building with some additions that we did to convert the first and second and third floor into 2 units. So on the first and second floor, there's 1 unit, and on the third floor, there's another unit. At the same time that all this construction has been done, the basement, of course, has also been done at the same time. And my clients, both at 223 and 225, would like to be able to use their their basements as separate units to convert the house from 2 to 3 units. Like I said, there is no construction to be done outside. All the construction has been done under the previous building permit. It's more just to legalize the basement and to use it as a self-contained unit.
Are these basements being used currently as self-contained units?
They're complete. They're finished. They were all done at the same time that the construction of the house was done. Would have been very difficult to bring the contractor back to do that. So to be honest with you, I'm not sure if they're rented, but they are finished.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the footprint of either property does not change?
Not at all.
In fact, it doesn't even sound to me as if there is further construction to be done in order to achieve what you're hoping to achieve if approved. As you say, it is a matter of legalizing what's already built.
Correct.
Okay. Panel members, other questions? Okay. If there are no questions, I think we can, dealing with number 32, which is 225 LISGAR. Mr. Nipfel, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of number 32, 225 LISGAR. It's an extremely minor application. Basically, it's internal work to allow an increase in number of units, but it isn't really going to, as I can see, it's going to affect the footprint of either the main building or the ancillary building. And the variance being requested is extremely minor. The secondary suite is permitted, providing there's no more, it doesn't occupy more than 45% of the interior floor area. And in this case, it's going to occupy 49%, which is almost negligible. So I don't see there being any difficulty with this application. And I would like to move approval without any conditions.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Are we approving this with 36 at the same time?
Well, we're going to do them. They are separate applications, separate owners. We're going to do them consecutively. We're going to do 36 right after this. We still need.
So I'll second that, please. Yes.
You are seconding Mr. Nipfel. So, on number 32, 225, LISGAR, it is moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. Votes unanimous. Motion carries. Approved. Okay, I think we can go now to number 36, 223 LISGAR. And I'm looking for, is anyone ready with a motion on that application?
Just to check,
Mr. Reed,
Chair, just wanted to check if there's any speakers on this file or no? On 36?
That's a good point. Let me check. Very good point. Thank you. On number 36, we do have the same speaker, Claire Tallarico. So let's ask Claire if she wishes to speak.
Yes. Hi there. Thank you. Yes, what I would like to do is, again, understand the project, and I would like the letters that have been written in great detail, not mine, but the others. I would like those objections to be addressed by the agent or the owner
Okay, Claire, you're
before
going
the committee makes its ruling.
are those construction issues?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay, so Claire, just to for simplicity, the Committee of Adjustment does not deal with construction issues. We're just dealing with the variances on these two
Okay,
applications.
when you ask me if it's a construction issue, perhaps I'm not as up on the vocabulary as you are. These are the issues of the variances. Okay? If I'm not supposed to call them construction issues, I'm sorry.
Okay, you should be addressing your question to the applicant. So do you have a question for the app? We're going to ask the applicant to answer your concern. What is your concern to the applicant?
My concern is that there is external construction required, further external construction required in order to legalize their basement apartment.
Let's find out.
And I would like to understand if there is or there is not.
Let us find out from the agent. Agent?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, all the exterior work has been done under the previous building permit. Again, like 225, we're just utilizing an existing basement as a third unit on the house. The only difference between this one and the other one is this is a one-bedroom apartment, while the other one was a two-bedroom apartment, and that's basically the only difference.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any further questions, panel, for the agent? On
Mr.
36.
Chairman, the other issue is the entrance. That's the other difference. Variance number 1, there's a pedestrian entrance leading exclusively to the basement in the front of the building. That's new to this application as well.
Yes, it is new. The variance is new, but the stairs were built under the previous building permit. But because we did not have a basement apartment at that time, the stairs were not an issue for variances. So now it's an issue because of the bylaw that says that if you have a set of stairs at the front of the house to a new unit, that is not allowed under the new bylaw.
Okay. Yep. Are there other questions? Okay, let's take number 36 into committee. Is anyone ready with a motion on 36? Mr. Reed, please.
Sure, thanks, Chair. This is very similar to the previous application, its neighbor, and I think the variances are minor and have no negative impacts. So I move approval subject to urban forestry condition number 2.
Thank you. Does that motion have a second? It is seconded, Mr. Cheng. Moved and seconded. Number 36, 223 LISGAR, to approve. Those in favor, please show hands. And that vote is unanimous. Number 36 is approved. Okay. We go now to number 33. (632) Euclid Avenue. Here we are looking at applications, submitted materials, revised plans, April 17, 6 photographs of subject property trees, an arborist report. There's a staff report from community planning. There's support correspondence from 533 Palmerston, 494 Palmerston, and 647 and 670 Euclid. There is correspondence in interest or concern from 629 Euclid. Okay. Okay, let's have the applicant or agent for this, for number 33, join us, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Gloria Apostolic, and I'm the architect and agent for 632 Euclid.
Good afternoon. Okay. Panel members, the agent's with us. Any questions for this agent? I am not hearing any. So we can, and there are no speakers in opposition, we can take the application into committee now. If anyone's ready with a motion or a comment. Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is a reasonable application, and the variance, I think the setback variance is extremely minor. The rear yard soft landscaping one is a bit larger, but I think that the applicant is limited in what they can do. They've sodded almost everything, and with the planning condition regarding further vegetation, I think that's a good solution. So I move the application be approved, subject to the community planning condition.
Thank you. And that is seconded, Mr. Chang. Moved and seconded to approve, subject to community planning. Those in favor, show hands. Motion carries. Application is approved. Number 34 is 10 Coleridge Ave. Before us are application submitted materials, photograph of trees. There's a previous Committee of Adjustment decision, 2004. There are presentation materials from the agent, April 19. There's a staff report from TTC. And, okay, from TDC. And there is support correspondence in the form of form letters from 8 owner occupants on Coleridge. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Leo Mastandre. I'm the agent for the owner at 10 Coleridge.
Good afternoon. Okay. Okay, here panel on 10 Coleridge. Any questions for the applicant? No, there aren't. Okay, let's take the application then into committee. Mr. Cheng, go ahead.
I think this is a very straightforward and minimal request to increase the height. And I also noticed the roof design is trying to minimize the impact, so I think it is supportable. I would like to move a motion to approve this application.
Thank you very much.
I don't think there's any condition. Yeah.
TDC.
TDC, right, sorry. with the TDC review.
Very good.
Thank you.
That is seconded, Mr. Nipfel. So, moved and seconded to approve, subject to TTC condition. Those in favor? That vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Thank you. Number 35 is 349 Walmer. Here we have the application submitted materials. There's an arborist report dating to February 1st. There are presentation materials from the agent, April 20. And there's a staff report from Transportation. We have support in the form of form letters from 351 and 346 Walmer and 14 Austin Terrace. Let's have the agent join us, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Richard Wangle. I'm the architect for the proposal.
Very good. Okay. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Wangle? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just trying to understand what's existing and what's proposed. I know the cabana has a note saying something about existing frame house to be renovated. Is what's there what's being proposed, or is it increasing in height?
It's got a small component. So if we can just pull up page 2 of our presentation, it's in color, it will help a bit. And if we just zoom into the very top of the page, you'll see it says frame house, which came from the survey, but it's actually a cabana right now. It's a storage shed. And that pool is existing. That's probably the largest existing swimming pool we've ever seen. Our client has bought this property and then wants to renovate and rebuild. That green outline where it says proposed cabana is the existing structure. And what we're proposing is to build it forward or westward towards the pool. And there's a small second story component on it that's just like a little clubhouse, but the intent is to put a small second story on top with a bit of a mansard roof to the back for pool storage. So its intent is really there's a washroom and change room and pool equipment on the ground floor, and then above it would be storage. So it's not a habitable space, it's just to create extra storage for off-season things like pool furniture, pool covers, etc.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Other questions? If there are none, we can take the application into committee for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't ask the applicant about the transportation condition. I wonder if we might.
Of course. Okay, so let's go. We'll go back out of committee. Mr. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad that was brought up. I was waiting for that. But so there are the comments that come from transportation pertain to front yard parking. There was an existing front pad parking that is being transferred to our client, who is now the new owner. That's going to take place in May. It started several months ago when we embarked on the project. It was recommended by the technician in planning to include items number 7, 12, and 13, which is the no street parking, parking undersize, etc. And we're happy to remove those, but it was just the insistence of the planning technician that said we should keep them, even though it is in process. In May, we expect that we will have a continuation of this license that has been there since, I believe, is 1998. It's common along the whole street because the existing houses are tight to the street. So there's a big boulevard, so technically cars park over that edge, but that's the condition on the street.
I wonder, Mr. Chairman, could the Deputy Secretary Treasurer give us some advice? Should we remove variance number 7, or it doesn't make sense to leave it in if there's a request from transportation to take it out?
Through the chair, we don't have any correspondence from community planning in this regard at all. The only correspondence we have is from Transportation Services, which does recommend refusal of variance 7 and 13. So the options are either the committee refuse just variance 7 and 13 and approve the rest of the variances, or the applicant can amend their application to remove variance 7 and 13.
I think we're comfortable removing them. I'd rather not see a refusal. I'd remove them because it is subject to approval shortly. It's just going through its process. And it's just an extension, a transfer of license that allows for this.
Okay, then. Let's do that then. We're going to formally remove 7 and 13. We're now dealing with an amended application. And those are both removed at the applicant's request. Further questions, panel? Mr. Nipfel, yes, go ahead.
I was going to bring forward a motion, sorry.
Please.
I would like to move approval of this application without condition. I think that notwithstanding the fact it's a large building, an even larger swimming pool, I think it fits into the neighborhood quite reasonably. I don't think the variances are out of line. I don't see there being any negative implications for the surrounding area, and therefore I'd like to move approval without any conditions and I'm moving approval of the amended application with variances 7 and 13 removed.
Very good. Thank you. Second to that is Mr. Reed. So we have a motion moved and seconded to approve the amended application. All those please in favor, show hands. That's a unanimous vote to carry the motion. The amended application is approved. Number 36 has already been dealt with.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask you a question on 36? And it's actually a question to Peter. You moved 36 with a forestry condition, which I don't have on my agenda. Is there a forestry condition? I don't have one in my agenda.
Through the chair, there is urban forestry condition number 2.
Okay, so let's just then...
Is there a report from forestry?
Through the chair, the urban forestry condition says it was received April 19th. If staff want to bring that up on the screen, we can try to find that.
It isn't listed under the components on my agenda, so I just wanted to make sure we were on. That's fine. If it's there, it's there.
Okay. Do we need to backtrack, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, to include that in our approval?
No, it's already in there. I was
asking. It was included. Okay, very good.
Because I don't have forestry on my agenda.
Okay. That lands us then at number 37, which consists of a consent plus 2 minor variance related applications. So let's go on number 37. To the materials that we are looking at. And they are. There's a copy draft plan of survey, December. Copy of submitted materials with the application. 1 photograph of site conditions. There are a number of past Committee of Adjustment decisions which affect properties on ADAIR Road and Homestead Avenue and Peard Road. There's presentation material from the agent, April 19. There's email correspondence from community planning and staff reports from engineering and construction and also from urban forestry. And there are 5 form letters in support from addresses on Victoria Park and ADAIR Road. Okay, Let's have the agent join us, please.
Hi, my name is Leo Mastandrea. I'm the agent for the owners at 83 ADAIR.
Good afternoon. Okay. Panel members, any requests here for presentation? Questions to put to the agent? Mr. Nipfel, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leo, I'm trying to find it again, but maybe you've got the information. Your variances request a side yard setback of 0.31, I think.
Yes.
And the drawings indicate that setback as larger. It indicates the setback of.
Yes.
So
if you look at the front, there's a projection that the second floor, well, the ground floor and the second floor project over about a foot. So the setback is in between the buildings. And what they're referring to is not the ground floor, but not the basement level or the garage level, but the level above.
So
if you look at the front elevation of any one of them, you'll see an overhang on the one side.
So in fact, in terms of, I was more concerned with the access to the rear yard. So you've got a 0.61 access side.
So we have four feet between the properties, and we have 4 feet on the sides as well.
Okay, so and the narrower side yard is only on the second floor.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, it's actually the ground floor, but yes. And
Okay, does it impede access between the buildings?
No,
Okay, thank you.
not at all.
Okay. Moderator, do we have one person standing by in interest on this one?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I've made 4 attempts to contact the registered speaker and was unable to locate that person.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that that effort. Okay. Any further questions for the applicant or the agent? Mr. Reed, please.
Thanks, Chair. Not even a question. I just wanted to say to the applicant that the lot fabric analysis that he did and submitted was very helpful in this application. So thank you.
Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, on this application, can we deal with the consent plus the 2 minor variance applications in one vote?
Through the chair, we can. We just have to be cognizant of the separate conditions. For example, with urban forestry, separate conditions for the consent versus minor variance. So,
okay. So maybe we should do three quick votes. Yeah. Okay. We're gentlemen, for that reason, we're going to do three votes on this. One for the consent, and one each for the minor variance applications because of the differing situations with urban forestry. It applies sometimes and not others. Okay, if there are no further questions, then let's take the application into committee, moving toward motions. Anyone ready with the motion? On the consent. On the consent. Mr. Nipfel, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With the consent, I believe I would like to move approval, and it's subject to the standard engineering conditions for the consent. And the forestry condition for the consent is an advisory memo, as I understand it. And I'm really not sure.
Through the chair, sorry, for the consent application, there's urban forestry condition number 1. And then there's a second urban forestry memo, which is just advisory.
Okay, fine, thank you. I've got them mixed up then. So, as the Deputy Secretary Treasurer said then, so forestry condition number 1 on the consent, and then on the variance conditions, or the variance, again, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the advisory from forestry. And I would also, because of the issue with the side yard and the fact that the side yard setback, if interpreted on the ground level, would reduce a problem of access to the rear yard, I would like to tie the approval to the plans in terms of the side yard setback, because as the applicant indicated, the side yard at grade is reasonable and you can get through, but then there's an overhang. So I just would like to make sure that that very narrow side yard doesn't get interpreted down to the ground level.
And just to make sure I understand what you mean, you're talking now about the second minor variance, 47, 0047, part 1.
Tell you in a second. It's the variance that deals with the side yard.
We just have to make sure we attach it to the right minor variance application.
It's on both of them.
It's on both of them?
Yeah, it's on both of them.
Okay. In that case, we can apply it to.
It was the reason for my question about the side yards. There's oh, it's number 9. The minimum required side yard setback of 0.9 meters, and their proposal is 0.3 meters, which is fine when you're up on the second floor, but when you're on the ground floor, that's too narrow. And as Mr. Mastrandia already indicated, it's only because of an overhang on the second floor. And that, if there's another way of doing it, I just like to make sure that at the ground floor, there is a wider side yard. And so I felt that we could perhaps tie it to plans relative to the side yard setback.
All right, I think he showed us through those examples in the presentation file. How that little gap space work between the two buildings. It's not really usable, I mean.
Not at ground level, but then if you look at the front elevation, do you see how the second floor and the third floor, they cantilever out? And the side yard setback that's in the variance is for that, the space between the cantilevered out section and the next building. I'm arguing that at ground, I'd like it to be wider. So perhaps the Secretary Treasurer has a preferable way of dealing with it. The only other way I could think of dealing with it is to say that variance number 9 applies only to the second and third level.
Or tied to plans?
Well, I had tied to plans. That's one option, or I think tied to plans is the easiest, but the other option is that variance number 9
to plans.
Okay.
Let's tie it to plans. I think tied to plans is easier too, and the Deputy Secretary Treasurer says that will achieve our purpose.
Okay.
Through the chair, that is correct. I also wanted to just clarify the rest of the conditions, just so there's no confusion. So for engineering and construction services, they have the consent 2 conditions. One is the standard municipal numbering and the reference R plan, draft reference R plan, and that's applying to the consent application. And then secondly, for the minor variance applications, there is a condition from engineering and construction services, as well as separate condition relating to the slope of the driveway. And then in terms of urban forestry, for the consent application, there's urban forestry condition number 1. And then in regards to the second minor variance application for Part 2. It's urban forestry condition number 1. And regarding the minor variance application for Part 1, it is urban forestry condition number 1 and condition number 3.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for that, Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer. Okay. Mr. Nipfel, are you good with those conditions?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay. In that case, we can deal with these together. We've now looked after the conditions that apply individually, and so our vote will be to approve the consent plus the 2 minor variance applications with the conditions as just laid out. Is anyone? No, so we do need a second for Mr. Nipfel's motion. We have it in Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded. Approval. Those in favor, please show hands. And thank you. That vote is unanimous. It carries the motion. And the 3 applications are approved. We move on to number 38. And number 38 also involves a consent with 2 related minor variance applications. On this application, we have copy of draft plan of survey. We have submitted materials with the application, site statistics, cover letter agent Jan 24, presentation materials from the applicant 19 April. There is email correspondence from community planning and heritage planning. And there are staff reports from engineering and construction, from TTC, and on this one, TTC has advised that it waives its conditions, so I think we can ignore the TTC.
Through the chair, that is correct. It came to our attention late this morning that TTC has submitted revised correspondence in which they have waived their previous memo with their previous conditions, and they wish to enter a no comment on both consent and minor variance applications.
So were we to approve, we don't need to refer to TTC.
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Let's have the agent join us.
And Mr. Chair and panel, it's David Nelligan, solicitor here on behalf of the property owner.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nelligan. Thank you. Moderator, could you let me know, please, on this one, do we have 2 registered persons standing by?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I was unable to locate both speakers after several attempts.
Okay. Thank you for trying. We don't then have anyone speaking in opposition or interest. So, panel members, unless you'd like a presentation, we don't have to have one. Anyone like a presentation? No. Does anyone have questions to address to the agent? No. I'll give you a moment on that. Don't appear to be. Okay, thank you. And again, we have a consent, 2 minor variance applications. We can deal with them the same as we did on the first one. If there are differing conditions that apply, we can scope those out in the motion and then do it as one vote. Were we to be considering approval? So let's take the application into committee. If no one has any questions for Mr. Nelligan, we'll go into committee and move toward a motion.
I think the bill form is pretty interesting.
conditions.
I beg your pardon?
That's my comment. It's a pretty smart way to intensify it and create some spaces between all the units. So I am in support of that.
Okay. Do you care to make a motion?
Yes, I just hope that I can capture all the conditions. So I would like to make a proposal to approve this application subject to TTC.
TDC, we don't need to mention it. The TDC has waived their
With that, right,
conditions.
sorry, yes.
Engineering.
Engineering, yes. And to check that again. I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. I'm getting the nod from the Deputy Secretary Treasurer. And can
Thank
we
you.
apply engineering and construction to the? Do we just want to apply it to? Should we apply to all three or just to the minor variance applications?
Through the chair, just to the consent application, ECS has a condition regarding a draft R plan.
Okay. So
Okay.
we're going to apply the engineering conditions to the consent only.
All right.
There's the motion. Does it have a second? It is seconded, Mr. Reed. Moved and seconded, therefore, to approve. All those in favor, please show of hands. And that vote is unanimous. The motion carries. That application is approved also. Thank you. With that, we arrive at number 39, 336 Pacific Avenue. And on 336 Pacific, we have before us submitted materials with the application, minutes from the September 14 public hearing, supporting materials from the agent, April 25, planning rationale from the agent, April 19. There has been comment from Heritage Planning, twice, and Transportation, Engineering, Transportation Services, April 13. We did receive correspondence in opposition from a number of individuals who did not supply addresses. I'll just read the names. Elizabeth Nidra, Megan Muller, Tristan Stevens, Jennifer Lee, Scott Oswin, Linda Levin, Susan Brown, Steve Karpick, and Braden Goodchild on Pacific. Okay. There are, in fact, no registered speakers speaking on the application. So we'll go to the agent, Mr. Chan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. This is Christian Chin on behalf of the applicant, 336 Pacific Avenue Limited. My address is Suite 138 at 157 Adelaide Street, West Toronto, Ontario.
Good afternoon to you. Okay, Mr. Chan, as I mentioned, we have no speakers registered to speak, but the theme which kept recurring in the opposition correspondence which we received and read was that of the heritage value of the building. We realized that it was considered for heritage status and was found not to qualify, but if you could, my question to you is to comment on the heritage value and whether or not your application results in a loss of that heritage value.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. So pursuant to the directions from the committee in September to defer the application for the purposes of conducting a heritage review, I'd advise the committee, I'd like to advise the committee that the applicant did retain the services of a heritage consultant to coordinate a heritage review with the City of Toronto. The City of Toronto did conduct an independent heritage review, and I did communicate with heritage preservation staff. Mr. Paul Maka was reviewing the application, and I do note over some time they did their review pursuant to the concerns that were filed in the previous hearing, before the previous hearing date with respect to heritage concerns. And I'd like to advise the committee that heritage preservation staff did undertake this review, and on February 7th, 2023, provided us at that time that they completed the review and that they had no concerns with the item being placed back on the Committee of Adjustment agenda. So my client did undertake to retain a heritage consultant as well as coordinate the heritage review with staff. And then I understand that the correspondence in opposition that were filed again prior to this hearing were submitted raising the same heritage preservation matters. However, I'd like to rely on heritage planning staff as to their conclusions in that the property is not going to be, or not intended to be listed or designated under Ontario Regulation 906.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, panel, for the agent?
Sir, if you'd like me to make a brief presentation, I would simply reiterate what I said under the first committee hearing in September, but if you would like a brief overview, I can certainly provide it.
Does any panel members want a presentation? No, Mr. Chan, thanks for that offer, but I'm not hearing a request.
Thank you, sir.
And there are no further questions of you. So I think we can take the application into committee. And in doing so, I'd look for comment if anyone has any, or the motion to put forward. Mr. Nipfel, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was on the original panel on this, and I confirmed that the applicant was very forthcoming in attempting to address the concerns of the residents. The issue, I think, is that the building that is currently on the site would require a great deal of work to be restored, but it is a very attractive historic building. The city was given an opportunity to designate it, and as Mr. Chen has indicated, combined with the applicant, undertook a review and decided that the building wouldn't qualify for designation. So I do believe, notwithstanding the loss of a rather attractive building, I do believe the applicant is in good faith looked at that issue and looked at it extensively. I have no difficulty with the current application other than the potential privacy of all of the decks. If you pull up drawing number A 2.1, you'll see that there are 6 decks that have overview to the south. I would recommend that they all have privacy screening. To the north, there's a street, a large street, Annette Street, and there's a rooftop patio deck, but the only portion of it that it would be exposed to the south is blocked by a staircase enclosure. So I think, subject to screening those balconies, this project has done as much as it can to address concerns for fit and context, and I'd recommend approval.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Could I just make one suggestion, please? A friendly amendment. Maybe I think in order to capture the height variance, if we could tie it to roof plan and elevations, I think that would.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I agree.
Limit it to the roof access. Thanks, Carl. I'd second that.
Very good. Moved and seconded to approve, tied to roof plans. Those in favor, please show of hands. There's a unanimous vote to carry the motion. The application is approved. And the last item on today's hearing agenda is number 40, 35 Memorial Park Avenue. On this application, we have before us the plans submitted with the application, minutes from a January 23 public hearing, landscaping plans, April, arborist report, also in April, and there is other supporting material from the agent in April. We have a staff report from Urban Forestry. And there's one form letter supporting from 31 Memorial Park. So let's have the agent for number 40 join us, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Michael Shazadfar. I'm the agent on behalf of the homeowners at 35 Memorial Park Avenue.
Good afternoon to you. Okay. On this application panel, there are no registered speakers in opposition. Anyone like a presentation? Does anyone have questions for the agent? Mr. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm, I know that Urban Forestry had some suggestions last time, and it looks as if you've swapped the driveway in regards to their comment. Is that what? Can you confirm if that's what's happened and if they're satisfied?
That is correct. So at our previous hearing, I saw forestry had some concerns with us proposing to remove the city-owned tree. So in order to deal with that situation, we literally just took the orientation of the house, flipped it so that the driveway now has minimal impact on the existing tree without having to remove it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Good. If no further questions, we can take the application into committee and head for a motion. Mr. Reed, please go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. I'm glad to see that the applicant worked to address the comments from Urban Forestry, and I think what exists now is a supportable application. The variances are relatively minor. So I move approval subject to Urban Forestry Condition 1 and the community planning condition regarding that substantially in accordance, please.
Thank you very much. Second to that motion? It is seconded, Mr. Chen. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, please, show of hands. Vote unanimous, motion carried, application is approved. And with that, we complete our agenda for today's hearing. It is 5:47 p.m. and the hearing is now adjourned. I thank staff for their flawless support and the preparation that made the day go so smoothly. And as always, I thank the panel members for their ability to concentrate on detail and figure their way through situations that are